My name is Julia Petrov. I'm the curator of daily life and leisure at the Royal Alberta Museum, and part of my job is to collect social history. So basically the history of people's individual everyday lives as well as their community affiliations, volunteer activities, and their family roles as well. And as a result, I work a lot with people in the community who are interested in donating things. Women do tend to be the keepers of family history, of family lore. They know all the gossip, the old gossip and the new gossip. They know how everybody's related, and they tend to be the ones that preserve heirlooms and objects of memory. And so that's where I tend to come in. Usually when they're downsizing or an important event has passed, they'll contact the museum and I'll be the one who talks to them about what the significance of those objects are. And usually the women who have preserved these histories have not actually preserved their own histories. They talk to me about their spouse or their children or their parents, grandparents, siblings, but they don't often actually mention themselves. One example is I was recently working with a donor who had given us a very large collection of objects relating to her husband's life. And then she came up with some objects related to her grandparents. And I said, well, this is great. I'd love to take these things, but what about you? What's your story? And she got really flustered and really shy and said, oh, no, I'm not important. And I think she was being humble. But it made it really sad for me that she felt that she wasn't worthy of being represented in the museum, or that her story, her history wasn't worthy of being told. And so one of my objectives is to make sure that people do think of themselves as important, and their even regular everyday stories as important. We tell a lot of stories involving women. Some of them are women that everybody knows, from the textbooks, leaders in their communities, and some of them are regular everyday women who maybe made smaller contributions, but they're important contributions nevertheless. What we do tend to find in our collections is that women tend to be represented in a specific category of objects. So we get a lot of clothing, we get a lot of cooking implements, and we get a lot of cleaning implements. And that is part of the story. It certainly represents the activities that a lot of women over the generations have been involved in, and it's really important work. But it doesn't always represent the full story. And part of the reason that it doesn't represent the full story is because the women themselves aren't offering these objects to the museum. But after they pass, maybe their family are the ones who are offering objects related to their lives. And so it tends to be objects that are related to specific moments in their life, and specific roles that they've played. So maybe a wedding dress, for example. So a very special day, certainly, but only one day of their entire life. Or maybe some crafts that mom made for the house, or a sweater, a baby sweater that she might have knitted for her first grandchild, that kind of thing. And these are really important and really touching and beautiful objects. But there's a variety of other objects that might be possible. I can't even suggest what they might be because everybody's lives are so different. And so, particularly as we're now facing a demographic shift, lots of baby boomers are starting to downsize. They're maybe getting rid of things from their lives, from their parents' lives. I really want to encourage people to think about, how do you want to be represented? How do you think you will be remembered, and how would you want to be remembered? So perhaps you are someone who did have some important role to play in social changes, or maybe you just lived a very average, ordinary life. Both of those things are really valid, and both of those stories, both kinds of stories, are things that we want to tell in our galleries and in our collections.